Ladies and gentlemen, for the request of the challenger, I would like to introduce CM Punk's personal ring announcer. WWE Hall of Famer, Howard Finkel. Ladies and gentlemen, from Chicago, Illinois, weighing 218 pounds, CM
Welcome to an all-new episode of the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. This is Corey Richmond, joined by Jason Brooks. Episode 209. Everyone's childhood gets rocked in different ways. The first person you hear is usually your announcer. And this morning at 69 years, Howard Finkel died. Jason, as an East Coast guy, I would think Howard Finkel was the voice also as your childhood when it came to the ring announcer. Whenever, a major event happened, you heard, and new champion, that was the voice.
It doesn't matter what coach you're from. I mean, he was the voice of all their big events happen at Madison Square Garden. So he was the voice of that. I mean, he was the voice of the WWE in the 80s,
And I don't remember if you were there with us, but that Survivor Series, I was actually there when that surprise happened when CM Punk won the title back from Del Rio, and the crowd just went crazy when, as you heard, when Howard Finkel was the special announcer. Were you there with us that day? Or
I was not.
Okay, I remember though we were doing. I think we were still doing the podcast at that point, and being there live, that was just one of those moments of like, I was a huge Punk fan, I think most people were. And that was just like one of those moments that you went, all right, this is something special. You don't usually ever see him. I mean, I listened to two versions of that. That was a fan's version. And at the end of the show, I'll try to see who was where I found that from. But there was also the WWE version where you had the dopey Michael Cole playing a heel at the time. It was basically making fun of him, saying, how long is it going to take and all this other crap. But I mean, I don't know if you have any memories of Howard Finkel, but I mean, that kind of, it didn't hit me as hard as ones in the past, when Savage, passed away, or Warrior, or some of the other ones. But when I saw that this morning, that kind of like took me back for a second.
Yeah, I think, there's just so much sadness that's happening lately. So it's just kind of just more sadness of 2020. The thing, obviously, Finkel was a big voice in my childhood and your childhood in the 80s. That's when we became, the wrestling fans that we still are now doing this podcast. And I don't know, voices and characters and memories are all a part of that. And he was a big part of that for me. I loved him as an announcer. I think they actually he left. I don't know whether it was him leaving or Vince asked him to leave, but I think there was some acrimony with him leaving originally back in the day. But yeah, no, I loved him. Loved listening to him. Again, it's been many years since we've really heard him, so it's the impact of him. It's not like he was still active and then he passed away. He's been I think he's had some health issues. He's had some stuff. So, but he's still young. 69 years old is really young nowadays to pass away. So, it's a real bummer. And we just hope condolences to his family and stuff like that. But yeah, he was great. He was great to listen to, and I it's absolutely a sad day in wrestling. Back-to-back sad days.
Yeah, he was one of the. I think he was the first non-wrestler to be put into the WWE Hall of Fame.
That's cool. That's awesome.
In 2009, and he was, like I said, the voice of a lot of people's childhood, and he'll be missed. I was listening earlier. He was one of the. I think he might have been the guy who actually coined the phrase of WrestleMania. So I mean, he had his legacy, and he'll be missed. And if anyone has any more ideas, stuff they want to discuss about him, you can always share some thoughts with us on Twitter at WorkShootPod, or on our Facebook group, which we're getting more involved with, WorkShoot Podcast. But Jay, the thing that we discussed a lot on yesterday's show was the WWE releases. After basically 24 hours to think about it, with a little bit more clarity, any more thoughts that you had, or things that you might have not had a chance to say yesterday that you need to get off your chest, or having a chance to think about things that were done? Or so, I mean, we found out that the main roster guys will be 90 days and NXT guys will be 30. One of the things that did come out from Fightful, I know I'm just rambling on here for a second, but one of the things from Fightful.com, and they've done a lot of good reporting on this, is that the furloughed employees will be there and will have benefits until July 1st. But they still may get fired. We don't know for sure. So there's a lot of stuff going on that end.
So hold on. The 90 days. Are they going to get paid for 90 days? Because we know NXT is going to get paid for 30.
Yeah.
So they're going to get paid for 3 months, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then there's a chance things might I'm not, again, the whole idea of live events with big crowds, I don't think we're going to have this year.
Right.
But, whatever, things might start to kind of come around again. So in 3 months, things might start to come around again. Also, let's throw into the fact that, as Dave Meltzer has said, I just, watched them on Wrestling Observer. They're not getting killed in terms of losing money.
Oh, no.
So maybe they decide to bring these people back. But to me, this shows that this is just a face-saving move. More than anything, this is just all about saving face. And this kind of proves it even more. You're paying them for 3 months, which is great. And that's great. They're paying them for 3 months. So they're paying them for 3 months, and then they're probably going to bring them all back. But again, it's, you show the stockholders and investors, hey, look at what we've done. We are saving all this money, when you're not really saving the money, because the guys are getting the downside guarantee anyway, because you're not, there's no, so to me, whatever.
It's ugly.
It's ugly, and it's a lot of BS. And the other thing I want to say is Rollins' part. I don't know if you saw Seth Rollins put some thing on Instagram or Twitter. And listen, he works for the company. He's a millionaire because he works there. He's a great performer. He owes the company, a lot. So I get that, and he's the ultimate company guy. But for him to talk about how people are bashing the WWE and they shouldn't, and this is the time to come together, and blah blah blah, and hopefully these people. Now, okay, I get it. He's a company guy, right? They deserve to be bashed for yesterday.
Oh yeah.
They fired people they didn't need to. So to me, they deserve to be bashed. And Rollins said, we need to come together, and it's not about that. We need to come together for sure, but we also need to hold people accountable who aren't doing what needs to be done, who aren't doing the right thing. And I think this isn't the right thing, firing these people. I'm glad they're getting 3 months salary. That's really, really good. I definitely, that's a really good thing. But to fire people, when they're making money, I think is ridiculous. And for Rollins to say, "Oh, well, don't bash the WWE." Well, yes, they deserve to get bashed for yesterday. We deserve to hold people accountable, whether it's politicians, whether it's people who work for big corporations. If they're not doing right by their employees, if politicians aren't doing right by the people that they serve, they deserve to get criticized for it. And so, to me, sure, Rollins is a company guy, I get it, but to say, "Oh, we're not going to bash the WWE, let's come together and be together," or the WWE together when they fired all those people? I don't think so. So let's slow down on that. I respect Rollins, I get it, but maybe yesterday wasn't the right time to message that, talking about, "Oh, well, maybe they'll get other jobs and blah, blah, blah." Like, I just don't know if yesterday was the right day to put that out there about togetherness and things like that.
And let's be honest, and everyone has said this, there are more people that are being let go that we don't know who they are yet. Maybe NXT names that we won't find out about for a while, or either they won't leak out or we won't know about until we just don't see them being used, for a long period of time. And all of a sudden someone says, "Hey, is this guy still there?" I mean,
and let's be clear with some of the NXT people. They're not getting 150, 250,000. They didn't sign Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. They don't make that money, right? They're making, they've talked about, and you could tell me, Corey, correct me, $80,000 a year, maybe 100, maybe 70. They're making what a lot of average, and I know a lot of people make a lot more than 80 and 100. I completely get that. But they're still not making loads and loads of money. So if they were banking on, "Hey, I'm budgeting for this is what I make," and now in 30 days they're not going to make that, that's a real hit to people. So this is really, really affecting lives, and that's not even talking about people who we don't even know, whose names we don't know, who they're letting go. So it was just a terrible day. But WWE definitely needs to be held accountable. And being held accountable is people bashing them on Twitter. They deserve it. People canceling their network subscriptions if they want to. They deserve it.
And let's be honest here. And I didn't realize this at first, but I don't know if you noticed this, but a majority of the names that were on that list were all Raw guys. So we might see after SmackDown goes off the air on Friday, we might see a bunch of SmackDown names on Saturday. I'm not saying I know anything, but if you look at it, majority of the names are all people that are usually used for Raw. Like Sarah Logan, who was on the show right after which, she's gone. Drake Maverick, who's going to be used for NXT, we know, and that's a weird situation to begin with. But I don't remember seeing, besides Primo and Epico, who I believe are SmackDown guys, majority of those people all were Raw guys. We might see another batch come Saturday.
Yeah, you're right. That's an excellent point. And as I said yesterday, they didn't release that many women. So, is that coming at some point? So it's just terrible. Just terrible.
Agreed. And you know what? One of those things that has been mentioned by quite a few different people, so I can't remember who said it, so I'd love to give credit to. And we said this yesterday. Remember, nobody's running shows right now, and who knows when people are going to start. So there was I think there was 22 people that were 22 wrestlers were released. Yes, you have multiple companies, and a lot of these companies are doing fairly well, but not all 22 people are going to be signed by AEW. If you're lucky, maybe 4 or 5 get signed by AEW. Maybe 2 or 3 get signed by, and Lucha. No, I'm sorry, Lucha Underground is no longer with us. Ring of Honor and Impact, maybe an NWA and MLW. There's going to be people who are going to may get some stuff on indies, and if they do stuff the right way and are able to say, former WWE performer, they'll be able to do well for a little while. But people aren't going to get guaranteed new jobs and are going to be fine. So it isn't going to be a 1, 2, 3 fix for all these people.
No, I agree. And and that's one of the big points we made yesterday. Is where's no way Jose going to work when this is all over? God bless him. It seems like he's got a charismatic personality, whatever. But what's he gonna do? He was a jobber in the WWE. Kurt Hawkins, I guess, has his own school. I think Zack Ryder will be fine. You know, some of these guys who've been and Zack Ryder's also been on the roster for years and years and years. So
yeah, I'm sure
you
he
know,
saved money. Yeah.
yeah, so some of those guys are different, but a guy like No Way Jose, now listen, he's been on the roster for a couple of years. Hopefully he's saved some money. But it's not like they gave you notice. You know what I mean? It's not like they're like, hey, No Way Jose. Well, 6 months, you know, might not have a job. Or when this coronavirus, and, you know, they didn't warn anybody that this was happening. Vince, apparently, and this is from the Fightful site as well, had a transcript. Basically, Vince went on there for 2 minutes and said, hey, guys, just so you know, shit happens. We're going to have to cut a bunch of people. Sorry, you might get some messages soon. And then they just started firing everybody. And he was on, I mean, the conference call was like 2 minutes. You know, again, you know, the world is a cruel, cruel place. And wrestling is a really cruel industry. And, you know, we're seeing that now.
And I guess, you know, the countdown to, I guess we should all put, you know, clocks, reminders on our cell phones for July 15th. Because for those who don't decide to, you know, not take the WWE money, 3 months, 90 days is up on July 15th when I guess people can sign with other companies. I mean, you already have, you know, the idea of Carl Anderson put up a little Instagram. I think it was either Instagram or one of these places putting up a thing, you know, from Santa Monica to Japan, where he's already putting ideas that he might go back to New Japan Pro Wrestling. You know, so there's little things going out there of feelers, I guess. So, I mean, July 15th is the day that we find out where all these guys land.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe it's before too. You know, maybe, you know, guys sign or basically intend to sign or, you know, what have you.
If they don't want to take WWE's guaranteed money, sure, right.
Yeah, or maybe we just hear that we know where guys are going. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we'll see. Some of the guys like Rusev, you know, Gallows and Anderson will be interesting. Others we'll never see them again on our television. So we'll see what happens.
One last thing on this before we move on. Either or situation here. If you're AEW and you could only sign, now we all know that there's like a 99% chance the Revival are more than likely going there. Yeah. Let's say if you could either only sign the Revival or Rusev, or let's say the Revival or, you know, the Good Brothers. If you could only sign like one of these new free agents, who's the one that you want that like is your number one pick?
Yeah, see, it's hard because the Revival, like, I wouldn't have put them in that. If you're telling me about just the guys that were released yesterday, and by the way, that's very all right. Well, let me get in that. But it was a very sobering thing you put on our Facebook page. Check us out, the Workshoot Wrestling Podcast Facebook page, where it had all the people who were fired yesterday or / furloughed. It was a very kind of sobering picture. If it's between Rusev, if you take the Revival out, it's Rusev far and away. I mean, he has a chance to be a world champion.
Right.
Throwing a Revival in, it's hard. I think Rusev is more valuable to any company than a tag team is. I love tag team wrestling, always have, you know, whatever, right? But I think a potential big-time single star is always going to draw in more people and make more money than a successful tag team. So I think I would say Rusev for sure. But again, it's different with the Revival. They have a relationship with AEW, things like that. But I think Rusev is definitely the most valuable guy out of all these people.
And you know what? I agree with you. I think Rusev would be that number one draft pick. Like next week we got the NFL draft, and if you're telling me if I have the first pick in a draft of all the guys who were unfortunately released yesterday, I'm taking Rusev. I think
it's not even close. I mean, I think it's not even close. I think the Revival are after them, and then I think there's another big drop off, and then I think it's the Good Brothers, and then it kind of falls off a cliff. You know, probably with Peraza, who I think is in like kind of another category.
Leo Rush, I guess.
Well, you know what? You know, you're right. Never mind. I take that back. It might be Rusev, then Leo Rush, then the Revival, then the Good Brothers. I forgot about Leo Rush because I think he's also young. I mean, I think he's 23 or 24, 25. Like he's a young guy still, and he's been wrestling. It seems like he's been wrestling for like 10 years. So he's got a lot of potential that he has not even tapped into yet. So I think Leo Rush might actually be number one. I still think a big guy is there. Oh, you put Drake and EC3? No, not even close. Not even close. They, EC3 can't work as well as Rusev has. He's not even close to Leo Rush. Drake is a good hand, and is super entertaining. I mean, most of these guys are going to be useful to any company. And I think some of them could be successful. Like No Way Jose, I don't know. Maybe there's something they could do with him to make him a success. Donna Purrazzo, she could be AEW Women's World Champion easily. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, like I said, it's just one of those stories over the next 3 months we'll be looking at, and it'll be interesting to see if these companies do open up at some point and this coronavirus goes away. If anyone decides that they want to be back on TV before that July 15th day, and they decide not to take the WWE money, and they go and show up on like an NWA Power or somewhere they just want to get back on TV. I mean, we could see back in the Monday Night Wars, people would say screw the 90-day no compete, and then they would just say, all right, I'm Lex Luger just shows up or whatever. And
I think the difference now, Corey, is the money is a lot different.
That's true.
You know what I mean? I think Sasha Banks is a millionaire, right? Like that wasn't happening in the 90s. There was only a couple of people who were millionaires in the 90s. Now a lot of the wrestlers are millionaires. And I think Gallows and Anderson signed, I don't know about $1 million, but they signed up for a lot of freaking money.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a lot of money to leave on the table to go to New Japan where they're not going to make nearly that much. So I don't see that happening, but, because there'd be no reason to. Also, there won't be a crowd. So, we'll kind of see how that goes. But the rumor mill is going to be churning. I think with these empty arena shows and how really rough some of them are, I think the business of the industry is going to be more interesting than anything that's happening inside the ring.
Agreed. All right. So on our last show, I believe we spoke about Ronda Rousey, and we thought her comments about the fans was a work or a shoot. And I went more on the idea that it was a work building onto when she came back to be, the ultimate heel character. She basically doubled down with her comments, saying that, if this was real and people fought for, 300 days a year, like, real fighters, you basically would be dead. Everyone in the industry has made comments from MMA websites where they were saying that, like, an MMA junkie, that Usual Stories had like 700, comments, and this story like 2,500. So, I mean, it's even the MMA fans who couldn't care less about wrestling were intrigued to, WWE personality.
She's a superstar.
Absolutely. I mean, you had WWE personalities like Nia Jax saying, that I would knock the bitch out. I wouldn't help put her over. And then the one thing that totally put this over the edge for me and thinking this is a total work is even WWE Backstage, their show on FS1, they even went and commented on it. They had their panel featuring CM Punk and Booker T and Christian making comments on the fact that even CM Punk, who said, this could be real, but, this is more than likely will turn into a shoot at some, turn into a work.
So Corey, here's the thing, though. Here's where I disagree.
Okay.
She didn't say it as a work. She said it as a shoot. I think she believes it. And I think there's evidence to her being upset about when she was booed. I think it was in one of the LA shows or whatever, when she was booed out of the building, when Charlotte was beating the shit out of her and the fans were like rooting for Charlotte. I think and people have pointed this out, there was something to that. I think she is upset at the fans. I think she is upset that they started booing her after cheering her after all she did at MMA. These superstars of any industry are very fragile people. I'm watching this Formula One documentary, which is really dope, by the way. And they're talking to this driver, Lewis Hamilton. He's won five straight Formula One world titles. And there's only 20 racers in the world. So he's like one of the 20 racers, and he's beating everyone. And you could tell from hearing him, he's just kind of like this maniacal guy who has some insecurities. So that's all these great athletes. Jordan had it. Kobe had it. All these guys did, right? And so Ronda has some insecurities. And I think that's more what's come out than, oh, is it a work or is it a shoot or is it a this or is it that? She's telling how she really feels. I think she's absolutely saying how she really feels, 100%. I think she loved wrestling. I think she loved being out there. I don't think she wanted to do it for 10 years. She didn't do MMA for 10 years. She left MMA when she got knocked out a couple of times, right? So, and that is her, once she starts getting fragile, her insecurities show, she's out. I think you look at what happened with her MMA and losing those fights, she's out. She started getting booed, right? Turned heel after being a big baby face. She's out. I think those two things, go somewhat hand in hand.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying the idea. I'm not saying that she doesn't believe what she's saying, but I'm saying a lot of this stuff will.
I don't think she's doing it to say I'm doing this thing on purpose to put it over for wrestling. Hearing some of Ronda Rousey's stuff, like I don't know that's. I don't think so. I don't think she's thinking, I'm going to say this now and you're going to set me up 40 minutes into this interview so I can then say this thing to then put this thing over. I don't think so. I really don't think so.
But maybe not the initial stuff, but the stuff where she's later on, where the later on tweets were like saying the idea where if these women, were fighting for 300 days a year.
Didn't she say that in the interview? No, she said that in the interview.
So that was the follow-up to, I guess, what I think it was either Nia or Alexa Bliss had said. There was a follow-up to that. And then she goes in hashtag kayfabe killer. And I mean,
the Hulk Hogan thing? Yeah. I mean, listen. Okay, Corey, sure. She played off of the interview. I mean,
which is smart.
It's smart, and it's also like it's really cool. But to me, to say like, oh, this is not how she felt, and this is all a wrestling storyline, to me, that's not true either. Oh no, and it's kind of what I said before, where I think there's a lot of gray involved. Mm-hmm. I think she was telling the truth. I think this is how she felt. I think she did feel that way. If you're wrestling, if you're fighting for real 300 times, you'd be dead.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And how physical and violent UFC is, mm-hmm. right? They talk about concussion injuries and stuff like that, and guys in the NFL who are committing crimes or whatever. The MMA guys are committing crimes at so much of a higher level than any professional athlete because of how much they're getting hit in the head, how violent the sport is. So
that fighter, War Machine, who almost killed that porn star Christy Mack.
Yeah, but even beyond that, the numbers of domestic violence cases are astronomical compared to other sports. But it's MMA. Some of the guys are not high profile, so we don't speak about them as much.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that was brought up in the WWE backstage segment by CM Punk, which I didn't even think about at first, but like I said, I know that the WWE backstage show is a Fox product, quote unquote, and not a WWE thing. But I do believe a lot of stuff.
It's definitely not a WWE thing because CM Punk wouldn't be there.
No, but subjects that are brought up, I'm sure are the WWE knows what subjects are going to be brought up on the show because Renee Young is hosting the show. I would pretty sure that these subjects are going to be like, all right, we're talking about this, at least subject matter, maybe not what's said, but CM Punk brought up a very interesting idea, which should have come to everybody right away. This will all set up at, Survivor. Yes, exactly. Survivor Series. The 4 horsewomen versus the 4 horsewomen of WWE. MMA versus WWE. This is how this all gets resolved.
Yeah, I agree.
What do they say? Always say what's best for business?
Yeah. Corey, I think, man, and I know we've talked about it a lot, and I apologize to the audience for bringing it up if you've heard me say this a million times. Not having a live crowd is going to kill that match. It's just going to kill. It's going to, by the way, Charlotte's promo, her package on NXT was the best thing that happened last night, by the way. Her video package was unbelievable. But I think not having a live crowd is just going to kill that match.
Well, I
it's
think
gonna.
Ronda's not coming back for a little while, so I'm guessing they're also hoping that by the time Ronda comes back, we'll have live crowds.
I mean, Fauci's saying in November Fauci's saying there's not going to be live crowds in 2020. I mean, that's what he said. So you could have sports, that's not a problem. He thinks that could very, very easily happen as long as the curve is bending. Live sports is not, or live crowds of hundreds and thousands of people does not appear to be something that's going to happen unless they get a miracle vaccine for this thing. So I think maybe Vince is hoping that happens, or someone's hoping that happens. But I think a live crowd with this, I think really Corey, I think they should save it. Maybe they can save it for WrestleMania. Although I don't know if you've heard the mayor of LA, and this is another news item for you guys. The mayor of LA said there's not going to be. He said he doesn't suspect that there'll be live, there'll be big crowds for a sporting event or a wrestling event or anything like that for at least a year. So that would cut into WrestleMania, which is going to be in LA next year. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, I know this isn't a sports show, but I just thought of this. Actually, I think someone else brought this up. You realize that the Dodgers traded for Mookie Betts, and there's a chance that he will never play for them?
Yeah, well, whatever.
I'm just thinking about that.
They're gonna re-sign him anyway. No.
Oh, good idea. But that is interesting on there. So like I said, Ronda Rousey always figures out a way to keep herself in the news, even when you would expect her.
I mean, listen. Here's the thing: she's a freaking superstar. Whatever she says is gonna make news. So, and that's one power that she has that not even Brock Lesnar has. Like there's no one. She's a superstar athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone? Excuse my burping. Is there anyone on the WWE roster who's a superstar?
Not really. I guess you could say Becky Lynch.
I wouldn't even put her in there. And that's a whole other problem with wrestling in general, whatever.
Oh yeah, the lack of stars, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if Becky Lynch says something, the general public's not going to care. You know what I'm saying? So just interesting. We'll see what happens with Rousey moving forward. If there's if there's crowds that can be put together and they get a miracle vaccine, which I'm praying for every day, which would be great. But we know vaccines take a long time. Survivor Series would be a great way to have that be the main event. That should be the main event for Survivor Series if they do it. But those other women have to get better. Shafir and the other one, Jessamine Duke, they have to improve a little bit too.
Absolutely.
That's what they're setting. That's what they're. I mean, Bayley and Sasha are together, and they're heels. Charlotte's a heel. Becky might join them, but it would be. I think it could completely dominate all levels of WWE television for that month because they're all on different brands. Even Charlotte, if she stays on NXT, I think it could be great storytelling if they do it right.
Absolutely. So let's stick kind of with the MMA theme here on the Wednesday Night Wars. Let's get into that a little bit. I think if you're a fan of MMA, you may have liked it a little more than others. What was your thought of the whole type presentation as an event for the night with the little inserts all night of quote unquote celebrities pumping up Moxley versus Swagger? I'm sorry.
Hager.
I'm sorry. It's still going to be Swagger for the rest of our lives, I guess.
That's fine. Just call him whatever you want.
Swagger with the whole type presentation. I mean, I personally thought, and I'm going to stick with my theme of the last couple of weeks of all these matches feeling way too long. But what do you think of the whole like presentation?
Yeah.
Of that.
I thought the presentations were a lot better than the match itself.
I agree.
It was a long match.
Agreed.
A really long match. A lot of heavy sweating. Or a lot of sweating. A lot of long breaths. Yeah, I didn't think it was a great match.
What do you think of all the celebrity or depending what you?
You could say that you could say that's a little corny, but I like it. I mean, I like making things feel like an event. I think, I think the WWE, I think one thing they sometimes do, but sometimes struggle with is they don't make some of their events seem like big events because they have so many of them. And I think AEW made this feel like they certainly don't make things feel like a sport. They don't make things feel like a sport. It's just like, it's just corny storylines oftentimes. Not all the time, but a lot of times. AEW made this feel like a thing, like an event. And we knew where it was going to go. It's Moxley's first title defense. Like, what's he doing? He's not losing the title. But they did a good job of getting celebrities in there, even if some of them were like, who is this person? And some of them I didn't even know. And some of them definitely sound like they were just reading off the script. That being said, it's still good to make it seem like a big event. And so I was, happy with that. The match itself was,
too long.
Too long. It was fine. The right guy went over, obviously, but it wasn't anything that was like, oh my God, that was amazing or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
The guys worked hard. You always appreciate that. They worked hard. They busted their ass. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is the worst match ever. It just wasn't great, which is okay.
And I agree. And you know what? We don't, unfortunately, just based on, because there's no live wrestling right now, we haven't really had a chance to talk about it. But I think for an empty arena match, I know everything's basically an empty arena match at this point, but I think MLW did this better with the Loser Leave Town match between MJF and Mace Warner. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that match a couple of weeks ago.
Warner, yeah, definitely.
But their match was because it was shorter, but that was
and also Mance Warner is like that's his style. So I think that's kind of his style. The lead up to that match was great. Like MJF's promo for that was tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's one who it's really a bummer that this all happened for him too because of the momentum he was building. But anyway. I thought that match was better, was more entertaining. But again, they showed colors, a little different kind of style than what we saw yesterday.
And that was taped before COVID. So I mean, and I don't know how much blood we'll see, because I know that's something not for this match, but I know it's something you had mentioned on Workshoot Pod on Twitter. That I forgot what match, but I remember you had saying that you would like to see, some color.
Yeah, the Gargano Ciampa match.
Right, and
that match deserves some color. And
I don't know if we're going to really see that in the COVID era. And I think when we saw that in the match last week with Britt Baker, which I thought really worked well with her character, and that's one of the really high points I think of AEW, Britt Baker with her character development. I think that happened by accident. I don't think we're going to see color very often in the scary times,
Well, I don't even know. I mean, listen, I am not Anthony Fauci. I am not an expert. But it seems like if you and I have corona and we wrestle each other, us breathing on each other and sweating on each other, like if you have corona, like I'm gonna get corona.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if like I cut you open and you're bleeding. Like this is not like a blood disease. It's a disease that's like a whatever. It's like, I don't want to say catching the flu because everyone says that, but it's a more cold type of thing to get to make someone else sick. It's a different kind, it's from mouth and stuff like that. From again, my very, very limited knowledge.
Right. Otherwise on on AEW, like I said, I liked the continued growth of Britt Baker's character. I think the best, and I've said this multiple times, the best thing that happened to her was her turning heel. It's really developed a character. And I think she's gotten better in the ring as a result of not having to be the face of the company. I think these promos have been good. I really enjoyed Lance Archer versus Colt Cabana.
I enjoyed that match too. I enjoyed the presentation. I enjoyed the lead up. I think one thing that AEW is really standing out with is I think their video packages have been tremendous. I really enjoyed the Colt Cabana thing where he talked about where he came from. And you knew he wasn't going to win the match. Yeah. But they did a nice job of making you feel like, maybe he can get the upset here. And I thought the match itself was fun. I thought it was a good match. I really enjoyed I'm really enjoying AEW's video packages. I think they have done, if there's one thing they've done better than anything, it's obviously the in-ring stuff we knew was going to be good with the wrestlers they have. Their video packages are so good and so professional and so legit I watch MLW, I watch NWA, which I love NWA, but when I watch MLW, I haven't watched Impact that much because Twitch. I don't know what a Twitch is, but their AEW's video packages are so slick and so good and so professional. It's really it's great. It's great stuff.
Yeah, and like I said, next week we've got the two other semifinal matches for the TNT title. We'll see how those go. And we also have, I think, everyone's favorite hardcore wrestler, which neither one of us particularly care about, versus Orange Cassidy. Hopefully Orange Cassidy wins. We move on from that. But NXT.
And the thing is, you talk about a guy's gonna get killed with no crowd. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's gonna be a rough match between a guy who I do not care for at all, and a guy whose whole gimmick is really getting the crowd involved, and that's the best thing he does. Oh yeah, it's gonna be rough. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but AEW, I thought NXT, I thought was another good show.
Yeah.
I know that this is just harping on a point that we can't do anything about. Really miss Morrow because I just don't think that the announcers that are doing the show are really at the same level.
Yeah, but I enjoyed them. I didn't mind them, and I don't mind Saxton when they're not doing the let's make fun of him and he's a dork and whatever. The other thing is, do you know who Lance Archer's best friend in wrestling is?
Who's that?
Brian Saxton. Or the only person, I take it back, the only person he keeps up with from his WWE days is Brian Saxton. It's interesting. I think Brian Saxton's an underratedly very respected guy in the WWE. I think he's a really nice guy who really works hard. And I really don't think he's bad, to be honest with you. I really did not mind their broadcast at all. There are no Nigel McGuinness and Morrow and Beth Phoenix, I think, who's really, really vastly improved. But I thought they did fine. Like I don't think it took away from the show. It wasn't the Mac guy from before who's horrible. I thought they did a good job. I thought it was fine. As far as the show in general, I think it was okay. Me, I'm a big Fabian Eichner fan. So I enjoyed that match. Yeah, I thought they had some solid matches. The tag match, Timothy Thatcher appearing, so he's kind of like another Pete Dunne in a way, not selling on
Matt Riddle.
The Matt Riddle stuff. So that's interesting. And that match was fine. It was pretty good. So yeah, I thought NXT had a solid show. The best things were the video packages. I would have liked the Keith Lee package to be like even deeper. Like they touched on him a little bit, but I think they should have really just went in 15, 20, 30 minutes on him. Because I think he's an interesting guy, even talking about that he's African-American. I think they could have gone real deep, and they kind of just did surface level stuff, which a little bummed about because, I mean, Corey, he is he's the biggest single star, African-American star in pro wrestling right now. So I think that's a big deal.
Kofi Kingston, right?
Yeah, well, Kofi's a tag team, right? So like, I think you look at just a singles African-American star, he's the biggest star. So I think even touching on that, I think they could have done more. I think it was fine, but I think they could have done more. The Charlotte thing was awesome. She was awesome. And, Drake and I have talked, and these trains are going crazy today. Drake and I have talked, and we've argued about Charlotte Flair. I don't know, man. Maybe he's right. I mean, her promo was fantastic, and she's right. And maybe I'm bitter at her because she beat Sasha a lot. You know how I feel about Sasha. But, man, her promo was just fantastic. It was just fantastic. And the fact that she's like, yeah, Io Shirai, she won a number one contender, but I don't care. I want to face Mia Yim. Like, she's calling her shots. She doesn't care. She's like, I am the best, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. It's great, and I think it really could elevate all the women in the NXT as long as it's going to be a kind of a slippery slope, a fine line between her beating everybody, because you can make Mia Yim looking good against Charlotte Flair is not necessarily going to make Mia Yim. So they got to figure out that balance of not be main roster Charlotte where she beats everybody, and so we'll see how they do that. But I also think she should take the NXT title and go against women on SmackDown and go against women on Raw. I think she should take the title everywhere, but we'll see how they do it.
Oh, and you mentioned Drake, just to let everybody know, talking about Brian Drake. You can check out his podcast, Fantasy Football Hustle. And, of course, subscribe on iTunes. They're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. One of the things that I really thought was interesting is that they're continuing to go and make us wait for this Velveteen Dream versus Adam Cole match, where they're going to have the you
can say Prince Devitt. I mean, Finn Balor, but
I always, my old school brain thinks.
He calls himself the Prince all the time. So
we're going to get Devitt versus Velveteen Dream next week. I mean, I understand we're most likely trying to go and make Velveteen Dream more credible than just a character, make him get big wins before he faces Adam Cole. But he's a little surprised that they're just waiting to have this match happen, where it seemed like this match was like inevitable, like going to happen like in a week or two.
Well, I mean, listen, Corona threw everything off, so I think that's also part of it. But I think the other part of it is the story they're telling is nobody is worthy of going against Cole for the title, right? And Balor's gone for the title against Cole, and Riddle's gone for the title against Cole. Everybody has, right? Ciampa, Gargano, everybody has. But now is the point where if Dream can beat Balor, and they did this point on purpose, where Balor called himself the greatest NXT champion of all time. If Dream can beat Balor, then he can say, hey, I beat who was considered the best NXT champion of all time. This proves I need to go against Cole. And the fact that Cole's not even there, I love it. He's like at his house or something, cutting promos. It's great. So I think they've done a good job with it. I've really enjoyed it. How annoyed Dream was that he wasn't there. I think it's been great. So I've thoroughly enjoyed that. And yeah, we'll see what happens. And I like that they're making Cole. This is what Ric Flair would do in the 80s. He would say, like, no, I'm not going against you. I'm the best. Like, you don't. I'm going to get on my jet plane and I'm going to go and I'm going to bark orders. Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard are going to go beat up these guys because I'm saying they're going to beat these guys up. So I like what they're doing there with Cole. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, Dream's probably going to beat Balor. It should be a really good match. And then hopefully we'll see Adam Cole versus Dream match. For the record, I know we're all about title changes. I do not think – we'll see what CDC says and how things go. Like, I know in Chicago the curve is definitely flattening and whatever. I really think Cole should not lose the title until there's a live crowd.
I don't disagree with that, and I don't think he should lose the title until he loses it to Keith Lee.
I think
I think Keith Lee's the guy who should win the title.
I agree. I think Keith Lee should win the title at next year's NXT Royal Rumble, the Royal Rumble event they do right before the Royal Rumble. I think that's when Keith Lee should win it. That's my opinion. You guys may not agree with me. That's fine, but I think that's what should happen. Maybe if there were crowds, you could do it sooner, but I think that's when they should do it.
The last big item from NXT was we saw the official debut, at least his face and the boot of his girlfriend, Killer Cross, taking out Ciampa. So I don't know. What was your quick thoughts on that? Do you think it was a good enough debut? And are you excited for the next chapter of Ciampa versus another, unstoppable monster?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Again, Killer Cross, I don't know. I'm not, oh my God, this guy's the greatest thing ever. Or Karrion Cross, whatever he's calling him. I'm not like, this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So, I mean, it's different for me than when Nakamura came or when Balor was there. We'll see.
All right. Running a little low on time, so let's quickly talk about what we talk about every week, the segment of the show. Dark Side of the Ring. We had the episode on Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Thought it was a really interesting episode. Didn't know super a lot about the subject. I know last week when we had Brian Drake on, I think both of you said you weren't super looking forward to the episode. After seeing it, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it was great. I thought it was really, really good. I think it was another one. I continue to think an hour is too short for these. I think an hour is too short. Maybe you say 2 hours would be too long, but I think it just seems like these subjects are rushed a little bit. Like the Brawl for All should have been an hour, but other subjects should be 2 hours. I think New Jack should have been 2 hours, and that's whatever. But in terms of being well made and well done for the time that they were given, I thought it was fantastic. I enjoyed it. Definitely a look into Jimmy Snuka, what it sounds like he probably did. I mean, not to whatever. The woman, he said, told 5 different stories about what happened to a woman, and then she had, hand marks on her neck from being choked. I mean, it sounds really bad. It sounds really bad. And it's just a sad story all around, right? Like this guy who was this great you talk about the 80s and all as much as that was the era that we loved, that was the era that we grew up loving, that everybody does. Any wrestling fan now, right? The Young Bucks talk about how Hulk Hogan was their favorite of all time, right? The Ultimate Warrior. All these guys, Snuka, Hogan, Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, how drugs and all these things really was just such a awful it was such an awful time in wrestling that we did not realize as kids at the time. And Snuka was doing that, right? Getting his head bashed in every day, and doing all kinds of drugs to the point where he was 72, didn't know where he was. So it was just, I mean, it was just a really sad thing. And again, I don't want to say here on a podcast that he murdered a person, but it sure as hell sounds like. I mean, again, whatever, right? But like, it sure sounds like he did, and it's just, I don't know, just sad for the woman who passed away. I mean, she'd be young. I mean, she wouldn't even be that old. I mean, this is, she'd be, I don't know, like 55, maybe 60 years old. Right? She would have lived a life, had children, maybe got married, maybe not. She could have done whatever she was gonna do.
Yeah.
But being in abusive relationships sometimes are tough. I've dealt with, unfortunately. I'm a school guidance counselor. I've dealt with students whose parents have been in abusive relationships, and it's very, very difficult. It's a very, very difficult situation. For people to get out of, and things like that. So it's just a really sad thing, whether he did it or didn't do it. We knew he was involved. I mean, I think that much was clear. And it's terrible. It's terrible what happened. And something like that would never happen now. Thank God. Something like that would never happen now. He would have went to jail back then with what we know about crime and whatever. Also, the Allentown Police Department was shit. I mean, goodness, we don't know that he murdered her. We do know it was a shit investigation, and the police chief at the time, or whatever, he was like mumbling and stumbling and bumbling when they asked him questions. Like, well, there's a third person in the car. Well, I didn't know this. Like, how did you not know this? Did you investigate the crime? It's ridiculous. So
I believe it's called Vince McMahon put a whole bunch of money in a suitcase, and we move on with our lives. I think.
Because that was his golden goose, right? So, and I guess the other thing I did not know either was I knew Snuka was a big star, and that was the early '80s, right? So, like, even you and I, we were young ones, folks. I mean, we were like very, very young. Like, I wasn't even watching wrestling then. So, like that very early '80s period before Hogan really came in. Snuka was the guy. I didn't even realize.
Junkyard Dog. I mean, those were the.
Yeah, but even beyond that, that was even Snuka was the man back then, and to even understand Snuka's impact, because I thought he was more of a mid-carder. He was a main eventer, and I didn't realize that really at the time, because when I grew up watching it, he was more of a mid-carder at that point. But yeah, so just a sad thing all around.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people our age, the last thing we remember of him is, losing really ugly to the Undertaker at a WrestleMania, which was, basically his last hurrah. But next week we have the death of Dino Bravo, which will be really interesting because I don't really remember Dino Bravo that well. But Jason, I wish we had more time. Next week, I'm sure we'll get into a lot more of the happenings of maybe finding out if more guys from SmackDown get released. Talking maybe about BET 200. Wish we had time to talk about the three-parter of 199 because it was really interesting this week. But
I thought it was funny. I thought it was fine. It was a good show. It wasn't anything like, oh my god, we gotta break BTE down.
No.
I mean, we're really struggling for content if that's the case. But we'll talk about next week's episode.
Yeah, big 200 episode. But Jason, let everybody know how to follow us on Twitter and all the little things before we get out of here right now.
Yeah, we're at Worked Shoot Pod, WARKED Shoot Pod. So check us out. Did I get the Twitter wrong? It's Worked Shoot Pod, right? WRKED. Oh my God, did I get that wrong? That's so terrible of me. Well, check us out on Twitter. Also check out our Facebook as well. The Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast, a little different than everything else. Yes, it is Work Shoot Pod because Corey always says Work Shoot Pod. So WRKED Shoot Pod, all one word. On Twitter, check us out. Trying to post more stories now that I'm working from home, so it's easy. I see a story, I try to put it up there for you guys. Check out our Facebook page. Not as active on there, but I think that's more Corey's baby. And check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Just look up Worked Shoot Wrestling Podcast. WROKED Shoot Podcast. Like basically what Ronda Rousey did, according to Corey. Worked, all right? A Worked Shoot Wrestling Podcast. Worked Shoot Wrestling Podcast. So look us up.
And of course, follow past guests on the show, Brian Drake, his podcast, Fantasy Football Hustle. Follow former guest of the show, Christopher Morin, started up Morin's Law. Give him a chance. And, of course, sister podcast, You Don't Know Jackie, which will be on every Wednesday. It's part of the FamDo Network. Jason, the floor is yours. And, as always, great having you.
I think we're done here. See ya.
Rest in peace, Fink.